Here we are now with the third big nor'easter in a week or so on the way. And besides all of the obvious problems that come with these storms, we're going to talk about another problem with Mark Murphy. He's the editor of the Providence Business News. The cover story in the current edition of the newspaper talks about this problem that you might not have thought of originally, and that is, can Rhode Island continue to be a tourist destination despite all the challenges that any winter and winter storm brings?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a problem, Frank. It's a challenge.
A challenge,
yes.
A challenge. It's not a problem, it's an issue.
Yeah. So I think the question is this. You know, a lot of tourist destinations succeed being year-round destinations, but it's clear that Rhode Island isn't quite in that grouping. The most obvious example would say be Block Island, which almost completely shuts down, but is very, humming all summer. And so that's really a question and a lot of people in the hospitality and tourism business would like to see more year-round business, but it's like I said, it's a challenge of trying to overcome the weather and then get people here and take advantage of what is here already.
Well, I was just off the top of my head, the restaurant weeks in Newport, East Greenwich, and in other places, I guess, is one way to get people out to a spot they might normally think of during the winter. But and your article begins with the obvious place that, I don't know if it's a tourist destination, but it's obviously active in the winter, and that's Yawgoo Valley ski area in Exeter. There are also others that you list, and we've got some of them on the screen here. Newport Mansions, they're trying for year-round tourism. Weekapaug Inn and Roger Williams Park Zoo. Makes sense, actually. How are they pulling this off, if they are?
Well, take the zoo, for example. They have a number of animals that are really sort of cold weather animals. They have a snow leopard. They have red pandas. I mean, they're very active actually in the winter. In the summertime, they're just in the shade trying to stay cool. It would be the same thing if you had polar bears, right? I mean, they'd be in the water, but in the summertime, they're pretty miserable. So the mansions are kind of an interesting case because, historically, those Newport mansions were not occupied in the wintertime. They were just summer cottages, right? Cottages. But now 4 of them are open year-round. They decorate the mansions for Christmas, sort of Victorian Christmas and early 20th century Gilded Age stuff. Not appropriate historically, but people are still interested in going. So they have it's a year-round thing. The restaurants are a reason to come. I think the issue, though, is a lot of people love the restaurant scene from all over the country. They love the restaurant scene here in Providence and in Newport. But what else are they going to do during that time? And that's sort of the challenge, is trying to get enough activities that, it's not just locals who want to go to Newport for a, restaurant week, but rather you get people coming out and staying.
Another part of this cover story has to do with the labor force, and some people lose their jobs in the bad weather.
Well, that's because they're on visitors. I mean, it's not that the visitors aren't coming because people aren't working. It's that people aren't working because visitors aren't coming. And that's really the challenge, is to try to attract more and more visitors because these hotels, these restaurants, they'd love to hire more people. I mean, the workforce generally in these kinds of businesses is more than doubles from winter to summer.
There's much more about all of this in the current edition of the Providence Business News, in print and online. Also special section with the PBN Manufacturing Awards in the current issue. And Mark Murphy, we thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Frank.